Hi, today I'd like to talk about the center of the Kalachakra, or the Wheel of Time. In previous videos, I've discussed how space, or spaces, individual spaces, or units of space exist within the whole of creation, so the whole of the Kalachakra. And I've discussed how karma relates to that in the if-go principle. So, for example, if you come into contact with another unit of space, you'll come into contact with whatever memory or whatever is occupied by that space. Contrary to what you might think, when you move from one place to another, you're not moving to another unit of space. You're actually moving your unit of space into a free place. So there's movement, units of space. So when you want to visualize units of space, and this is something I saw during Enlightenment, and if not, would not have been able to visualize this, what you want to consider is picture a huge sphere. It's a golden sphere in this case, okay? And the sphere is composed of cubes. So imagine little dice, if you will, that compose this square. And these are like cubes, like three-dimensional cubes that are units of space. And these move around within this square, around the center, technically, of the square. Or the circle, because the Kalachakra can expand into a square or a circle. It's elastic. And or different geometric shapes, basically. So what you have basically is you have these units, these cells, if you will, squares, which contain, for example, a person, okay, which are moving around within the Kalachakra. But when you move around, you don't move from one square to the next. It's actually your square, your unit, that moves around within the Kalachakra, and you stay within it. So there's movement pathways between, so you can basically move within the Kalachakra, okay? And the goal, if you will, is to move nearer the center. But I'll go into that a little bit more in detail. So you're either nearer the center, okay, which is, for all intents and purposes, stationary, okay, or you're further. So it's basically, visualize you have these units, these squares, these golden squares within the huge geometric structure of the Kalachakra that are moving around at intense speeds, very high speeds, okay? And you can only move to an area where there's no other square. However, visualize, and I guess infinity would be the way to visualize this. Visualize that there's infinite space to move your square to, but you cannot move to a location where there's another square. You can come into contact with one, but that doesn't cause any issues as far as moving. So when you become enlightened, you actually enter the Kalachakra. I entered the Kalachakra, and you actually visualize the whole movement of the sphere. It's extremely complex, and you see it all moving, and you're actually moving through it, and you visualize all that. So the difference here between moving from your square, moving your square to another location, which is regular movement, if you will, within the Kalachakra, and a Shri, or one who can push forward, is that a Shri can actually move from one square to another square. Now, what's the purpose of that? The purpose is to eventually move to the middle square, the center of the Kalachakra. And the only way to be able to move into that square, because that square has a fixed location, so that location is already taken, if you will. You can't have two squares in the same location, is to actually enter into that square. So you have to push forward into that square. So another experience you have during enlightenment is you visualize the sphere with all the positions. So you see everybody moving up and down, sideways, eventually, in this case, trying to reach the top. So the top is the final destination, if you will, almost like winning a game. So it's the first one to reach the center, right? So the same idea can be used with the Kalachakra. So it's the goal, in a sense, is to be closer to the center and eventually to become the center, right? So that's essentially how the Kalachakra works. You have squares, units of space, and the movement is what creates time. The movement of the Kalachakra, and everything is in movement within the Kalachakra. Okay, and you're basically moving through these pathways, if you will, that the squares use to move to different locations, either moving further away from the center or closer to the center. I thought I'd talk a little bit about that, and basically, I'll just add in. You also have a number to it. So when you visualize that, you have a number associated. So the first one that reaches the center, the second one that reaches the center, the third one that reaches the center, etc. Thanks for listening.